4th, and today I'll be reading Shaun the Speedy Snail. I sent a reminder out to parents just to let them know that I know many students have not been watching my videos and you've been scoring super low on assignments and quizzes, and that's really affecting your grade. So please make sure you are watching my videos. That way you're scoring high, because if you don't watch my videos, you're going to have no idea how to complete the assignments. Today's ELA objective: students will be able to determine the theme of a story by identifying the central message, and your DOL is finding the theme through an online assignment. Themes in literature. Just remember a cream-filled cupcake. Cream filling is hidden inside a cupcake. Themes are hidden inside a book. Think to yourself, what does the author hope the readers realize? And below are famous examples of themes in books that we've read, whether it was this year or previous years, so we feel free to pause the screen and take a look at those themes. A theme is just an underlying message that the author wants you to learn from the story. Here are the steps you can follow to find the theme. Step 1. Read the story and summarize the plot. Step 2. Identify the lesson learned by the main character. How did the character change? What lesson did the character learn from the resolution of the conflict? Write one or more generalized sentences that state the theme. Support your theme with evidence in the text, which we always do. We always use text evidence to support our theme or whatever we are learning that day. I'll be reading Shaun the Speedy Snail, and when I'm done, I will be going and following those 3 steps in order to find the theme of the story. So as I read, you can follow along on the screen, or you can pause the screen and read it yourself. Shaun the Speedy Snail. Shaun was a snail unlike any other snail in the ditch. All of the snails that Shaun knew were slow. They were slow to get food, slow to get water, slow to get anywhere. The snails of Shaun's ditch were so slow because they each had huge shells on their backs and they had to carry around. The shells were heavy, but they had to be because the shells were the snails' homes. Certainly, Shaun had a shell on his back too, just like all the others. He even named it Shaun's Place. He was funny like that, and the snails enjoyed his sense of humor. What made Shaun so fast was that he was stronger than everyone else. Having his home on his back didn't bother him like it did the others in Shaun's ditch. The others would complain and sigh, so depressed that they had such a weight to carry on their shoulders and backs. Because Shaun was the strongest and could carry his home with ease, he was also the fastest, making Shaun the speediest snail around. From the time Shaun was a baby snail, he could beat any of the snails he knew in the ditch in a race. He grew up challenging each snail to a race, and he was undefeated. Shaun started using his speed for his benefit, and his benefit only, though, which was something he would later regret. Anytime there was a leaf that fell to the ground, Shaun would race to it and eat until he got full before anyone else would get the chance. Shaun was always quicker to the roots, too, and he'd eat them right up. If it rained and puddles of water formed at the bottom of the ditch, Shaun drank and drank all he needed right in front of all of his friends and family, who were slowly gathering at the pools. It was almost as if Shaun was showing off how strong and fast he was all the time. The other snails liked Shaun, but the way he used his speed was making them angry. So far I can gather that Shaun isn't the kindest snail. He just thinks of himself. He puts himself first. He isn't doing much for others. He's very selfish in that way. Let's see if that changes. After some time, when the other snails became particularly hungry because Shaun was beating them to all the food, the snails in the ditch decided that enough was enough. "Shaun, stop eating so much before we can have our helping," cried Blaine. "Yes, Shaun, we know you're big and strong and fast," agreed Susan. "You don't have to keep reminding us about how slow we are," she added. Shaun was a little upset about their remarks. "Well, maybe if you would exercise a little bit more, you could beat me to the food and the water," he said. "How could we become stronger if you keep beating us to our food?" replied Harvey. "We all think it's about time you found another ditch, one that you can have all to yourself," said Blaine. That hurt Shaun. He felt a knot in his heart. Slowly as he'd ever crawled before, he left the ditch for another place to find food and water. He knew that there was another ditch across the road that was completely empty of other snails. Sean was the only one who knew that because he was the only one capable of getting across the road safely with his speed and all. A couple of weeks went by. Sean missed his friends across the road, and he realized that his ditch had even more food than the other, much more than he'd ever need. He decided he'd pay them a visit. He waited by the side of the road for the closest car to pass. Once it did, he speedily crossed back over to his old ditch. What he found made him more upset than anything before. "Sean," cried Blaine, "we need your help. There isn't enough food in the ditch anymore. We're too weak and too slow to find enough for all of us to eat." Sean's friends were starving. Even though they had asked him to leave the ditch, it was only because of his selfish actions. Sean knew what the right thing to do would be. One by one, Sean lifted each of his snail friends up on top of Sean's place and as fast as he could, which for Sean was pretty fast, brought them over to the ditch and on the other side of the road. They were all safe and sound, especially after Sean raced around the ditch getting food and bringing it straight to his weaker friends. Sean would never use his speed to show off again. So I noticed that Sean's character traits changed at the end of the story because now he was putting others before himself. Step 1. Read the story and summarize the plot. Sean the Speedy Snail was about a snail named Sean who loved to show off in front of his friends and family. He was always the first one to win races and to get food to eat. They were getting tired of Sean always showing off and asked him to leave their ditch. Sean left the ditch and found a new ditch full of food and water. In the end, Sean helped his friends and family one by one to get to his new ditch where they could have fresh water and food too. Step 2. Identify the lesson learned by the main character. A. How did the character change? The character in the beginning of the story was inconsiderate and rude to his friends. At the end of the story, Sean saved all of his family and friends by bringing them to the new ditch. What lesson did the character learn from the resolution of the conflict? The character learned that it is not always a good thing to come in first place because it can hurt others' feelings, especially when it comes to food and water. Write one or more generalized sentences that state the theme. Support your theme with evidence from the text. The theme of the story, Sean the Speedy Snail, is to always be kind to others and help those in need. I know this because in paragraph 14 it states, one by one, Sean lifted each of his snail friends up on top of Sean's place, and as soon as he could, which for Sean was pretty fast, brought them over to the ditch on the other side of the road. They were all safe and sound. This means that instead of putting himself first, he put others first by helping them and being kind to them. So I actually just used the race strategy for step 3, which is what you'll be doing for your online assignment. So my overall theme is to be kind to others and help those in need. That's my personal theme. That's what I learned from reading Sean the Speedy Snail. Your independent work is to read The Vegetable Thief, and you will use the following steps to find the theme. For the very last step, step 3, you will be using the race strategy to respond. I hope everyone has a fantastic Monday.